Everybody, thank you for joining me on Buzzing with Marlowe live. I say it again, live. I hope all is well. Happy Friday. Guys, if you are new to the channel, make sure you like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. Hit that notification bell to stay in contact with all our platforms. We are all on social media platforms, ladies and gentlemen. We are also on, just to name a few of the audio platforms, we are that's Podbean, Podchaser, Podvine, Apple, all Apple, man. That's crazy on live lately this week. Needless to say, we had obviously commission talks with my boys Dre on Wheels from the 11:30 podcast, my boy from the Mob, Eric the Joker, off the Wrestling Asylum, and obviously from the OTTR Mob. And man, we had a great talk talking about the Royal Rumble, talking about Tom hiring. That awareness is what we need to look at for approach of for our bodies, how we can look at stuff, how we can tackle on stuff that we didn't think that would be a big issue, and then I can find out it can be a major issue, but get it early so you can get it completely out of your body, cleared regarding cancer or anything like that. So guys, go check out that episode. We were crazy busy this week, and also we got our regular episode today, or 5 p.m. Eastern time, commission talks. As y'all can go to our bonfire shop, bonfire/buzzing with, and get these awesome merches like our hats, ladies and gentlemen. You see the options you get. You can get navy blue, you can get that cranberry, you can get the classic baseball hat, the snapback cap, the cuff beanie, the pom-pom beanie, and last not least, the trucker hat. I actually have the trucker hat. But guys, y'all can check them out. You can get a hat. Obviously, you can go to our right over here, and you can see all this we got. That's right, we got t-shirts, necks, long sleeves, the tank tops. As you can tell, I'm rocking the blue one right now. We've got not ladies, women's Razorbacks, and be an awesome Valentine's gift, guys. Also, you can check out the pullover hoodies, the trend long sleeve tees. We got the V-necks for them ladies also. Valentine's, guys, Valentine's. And for our young youth, for the 3/4 sleeve baseball tee and the basic tee, Buzzing with Marlowe. Go to the bonfire shop, type in the promo code 20, ladies and gentlemen, and you get 10% off. I can't preach that anymore, guys. 10% off. You can't go wrong. Rock some awesome merch. I tell y'all, man, I wear these all often. They're so comfortable. The hoodie, my goodness, you could sleep in the thing. Is how warm you'll be in those. But I'm very active this whole week. But I'm looking so forward to this. As if you're parents and I have teaching your kids how to swim, don't waste any time, ladies and gentlemen. We got somebody here to help us all regarding that situation. That's right, guys. My guest today is the one, the beautiful Selena Willows. That's right, guys. Selena Willows. She is a swim instructor. She has been a professional for teaching people how to swim, not only from the military, but now the youth, to teach them how to swim. Not just swim on their backs. I know we see all the kids that are now learn how to swim. She's going to teach you, no, that is not the way. And we're going to talk so much into that, and how she got into this. We're going to talk about, her time in the military, her time, from one location to being to another due to being married and stuff like that, how she built a foundation and family. What is for her. So guys, sit back, relax. We're going to go to a quick commercial break, and then after that, the countdown goes 30 to 1. We will be joined with Selena Willows. And ladies and gentlemen, that starts right 3, 2, 1 now.
With Batsy. It was just last night, as the entire country was tuning into its favorite talk show.
You simply makes you a stranger.
VMAL. It contains strong language and is intended only for mature audiences.
Don't even know why I'm watching, cause it ain't funny when you ain't here. But I know you're going away, so I'm watching so we can stay here. I heard you trying to protect myself. I ain't making excuses, I'm just letting you know I understand why you live. It was toxic, back for your help. You trying so hard to love me, but I really couldn't love myself. I need to be patient, baby, with time's up. Whole time I really felt like I wasn't enough. Deleted all of your pictures cause I can't stomach the fact. After all that we've been through, my baby's not coming back. I swear that I'll go down crying while I'm writing this track. I swear that I'll go down crying while I'm writing this track. Got more words this. Day one popped out. Ain't nobody in this motherfucker fly to me. These bitches all in my DM. Texting them back was good, but I ain't really trying to see them.
Out, he said he accepted, and you know what? Nobody wants to see it because nobody remembers the American prodigy. All this history, and nobody cares. But if you could find one, that's all I'm asking. If you could find one promotion that wants to put this on, I'll be there. I will be. There's no running. There's no running. Not at all. I will be there. Right in the center of the ring. You versus me. And then when I beat you, you'll understand that maybe wrestling wasn't for you. Maybe this is a good new career change. You're a podcaster. You're an influencer, social media.
What's up? Florida, weighing 238 pounds.
right, guys. I'm joined with Selena. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well. I am doing well. It is Friday. Whew. Whew, it's been a week.
I think for everybody.
Sure.
Sure.
So where are you currently at right now?
So I live just outside of Ottawa in Canada.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
How's the weather out there?
It's a little chilly. It's
Yeah?
getting a little cold for swimming. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Leaves are starting to change and fall. A little bit rainy
Are
yesterday.
you born and raised in there?
Montreal. Born and raised in
Okay.
Montreal. Yeah. Moved to Ottawa when I got married.
Okay.
He already had a job here, so here we are. And I love it here. I wouldn't go back to Montreal. It's
Okay. So how much of a further distance is from Montreal from where you used to live?
It's like 2 hours.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's
Like
not
really
too far.
easy. Yeah, it's really easy. And I'm back and forth all the time because I got 5 siblings and they're all in Montreal. So
Oh, wow.
I'm
So
constantly
definitely going to
back
be there. You're going to be around that area just
All the
eventually.
all the time. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Selena. So if anyone doesn't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, I am a water safety education expert. I don't call myself a professional because that term is used for all the 16 to 23-year-olds that teach swimming lessons. And I am clearly not a 16 to 23-year-old. I've been doing this a hell of a lot longer. So that's what I call myself. And I have been a coach since I was 14. I started coaching gymnastics recreationally, competitively. I started teaching swimming lessons, lifeguarding, and it kind of just organically grew from there. I ended up lifeguarding for the military on a military beach, and they were teaching cold water survival and didn't have a curriculum, so I wrote one.
Wow. Okay.
And yeah, and so I ended up administering that curriculum for almost 10 years, teaching military members cold water survival. And then from there, it just kind of grew. I started building programs for community pools and private aquatic facilities. And then one day I decided I should build my own. And so I did. Yeah.
Hey, that's pretty cool. And especially for like the military background and stuff like that. So is that something that you've always wanted to do? Like when you said you were coaching gymnastics and stuff like that, was that like your passion was gymnastics?
No, I actually fell into it. I love the water. Swimming is I love being in the water. I find it calming. I find it soothing. It's quiet under there.
It really is.
Yeah. And no, the gymnastics, my sister is a gymnast. And so my sister was at the gym at 5 years old, 25 hours a week.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah. And so as soon as I was there all the time, but not participating.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I turned 14, I had spent enough time around the gym to know enough that they started teaching me how to coach. And what ended up becoming my passion, not just the water, but coaching. And so coaching has become part of who I am.
Right.
Yeah. And not just children. Like I have coached, children, child athletes. But then I've also coached teenagers, and I've coached adults, and I've coached athletes, and I've coached, people who just want to change the way they're living. I've done a lot of coaching, and but the water is where my heart is, helping people with that fear and all of that stuff. Yeah.
So how you love the water and stuff like that. So for you to get an occupation for teaching swimming and stuff like that, and I love when you talked about with the cold water thing, like with me being a former pro wrestler and I've put my body through a lot, I never knew what an bath was until I got to college. And I never really liked super cold water. I'm a Florida boy. I love the hot weather, the cold water is just too much, I thought sometimes. But when I got in college, and they tricked me one time because I thought it was like, just a bath, whatever. And I'm sitting there thinking like maybe it's like Epsom salt that they were pouring in there. Like I wasn't paying attention what they were thinking, because I'm just hearing in the water, and I just go in. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? And like they said, just sit in there as much as you can. You're gonna feel brand freaking new when you get out.
Yep.
And it was definitely different. And I have been doing at least a cold bath once or twice a week now, and my body does appreciate it.
Yep.
So for you to learn with the cold water therapy or something like what you were saying, like how was that transition? And then we will talk about with the kids swimming and stuff like that. So what was the transition of you getting yourself in that mindset to be able to withstand that cold water? Like people don't realize when you're in that water, you are very stiff. It is hard to move. And that was one thing I did not like about cold water. It was because I had no control of what was going on. The only way I had control was if I bounce up, pop up. That's really all you had control for. So how was that transition?
Yeah, it was hard. It was really hard. So I got to this military beach I'm supposed to be teaching at, and there are 500 students a summer that are right there ready to learn. And I'm thinking, I don't even know what this experience is like. I have to teach them how to do this, and I haven't even done it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to learn to get into that water and figure out, how does my body react? What does that feel like? At what point can I move? At what point can I breathe? All of that stuff, right? Because when you get in, this thing happens where everything seems to tighten up and you have a lot of trouble breathing, right? Expanding your lungs is really difficult. And your muscles tighten up, everything kind of seizes. And maintaining calm. Now, it's one thing if you're sitting in an ice bath, you get your butt in the bottom, you can touch. But if you're in water where you can't reach, you got to be able to chill out and just relax. And that was honestly the mental of it was bigger than anything else. And that kind of helped me frame some of the stuff that I do now, right? I specialize a lot in special needs and in children who have had non-fatal drownings. So children who have trauma around the water, and that mental overcoming of the cold is very similar to the mental overcoming of a fear in a child. So, yeah. Okay.
I'm very thankful that I've only took ice baths. Going in the ocean and not being able to touch the bottom, that's panicking for sure. I do want to go now. So with the military background, stuff like that, like how was that? Was it what was more different with the military standpoint than with you just doing the basic, transition with the gymnastics and everything like that? Like, how was that transition? That one sounds like that was a very tough task.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually in the military for 10 years, so it's a culture that I'm comfortable with, that I understand. I also had worked a bit with police officers, and so what tends to happen is that many of these, and most of the men, just the way our culture is, right? There's a lot of like, well, my body doesn't float. That's too much muscle, and a lot of that, like, too proud, you can do this, no problem.
You're speaking full truth. I'm not gonna tell you you're not.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah. And I think that is necessary. Like that I'm going to call it arrogance. It's not really what I mean. It's kind of not the right word for it, but that arrogance, that
you
pride,
try to be nice.
But I think it's important, right? I mean, with what they are doing with their lives, it's important. You got to have that together. You got to know that you are on top of it, and you got to feel like you are on top of it. And so I think that comes from a very important place. But it's not super helpful when you're trying to get over, trying to get your body to do something that it doesn't seem to want to do, or trying to like get your head around an idea or a phase of something. So that was really interesting, trying to kind of learn how to get their heads around that it's okay to be a little worried at first, and it's okay to, you know, and it's okay to be learning again. You know, it's okay to be in that phase where you are learning again.
I was trying to mute it so I don't cut out for when you're talking, and obviously because I've got all kinds of other stuff around me. But my issue, and I love when you were talking about, you know, like we've got more pride. My biggest thing when I was young, when I was in my 20s, I was against yoga. I believed I was not bendable and all that stuff. And that was a very big transition for me. College really had some learning curves for me with the ice bath, and then my college coach looking at me going, "Hey man, you're not flexible enough." Like my basketball coach told me, "Hey man, you got to be more flexible. You're stiff all the time." So he got me to do this stupid hot yoga or whatever this thing was, and I was like so out of my element, just out of everything. And I remember when I was telling my parents, they were like, "Hey, how's school and basketball and such?" And I was like, "Man, they got me going to yoga class. Like, I don't know what is that doing for basketball?" And then when I realized, I mean, I don't do it as much as I did there, but I still put a little bit of it in now just for the longevity haul. Like, it's helped me for my body and stuff like that. So I love when you did talk about like men's got that ego, and just it's only that way, and it's never another way. It can never transition. And I think I have noticed that too, and especially being a parent and having a son and a daughter. It's crazy to see how women can float in water a lot better than most people. But I've witnessed my nephew, and he was, I think, maybe 3. I've seen some of the YouTube videos. That's traumatizing enough right there for it. But my nephew just floating in the water. I'm like, he's only done how many lessons? They're like 1 or 2. I'm like, so he's already like this and floating up in the water. And I'm like, is that simple? And they're like, no. Like, I was like, do you go to the lesson? She's like, they won't let us. Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah. So like, there's learning to float is about letting go. Learning to float is about releasing and submitting to the water. If you are able to submit to the water, then it will hold you. But if you're not able to submit in life, right, to your yoga practice, to your whatever it is, then that's going to be a really hard thing for you as a person, right? Some children pick it up really, really fast, and with the right instructor, that can be really, really helpful. But part of the issue here is that children are being taught, and I'm gonna kind of take a trajectory here, but children are taught to submit to the water before they know how to swim.
Yep.
And that, to me, is really dangerous.
Yeah.
Because you've just taught a child that the water is safe, that the water is comfortable, that there's nothing wrong. But what happens outside of that back float? Like, sure, he can do a back float, but like, then what? Does he just stay in it forever? Can he get onto his back if he falls in? Right? So being able to perform that back float seems like, wow, especially when as an adult you may have had trouble doing that or learning that, but they're way chubbier than us, right? For the most part. So they've got all that extra fat, which helps them float. But it's that teaching to submit, and they don't have all that baggage in the back saying like, this is dangerous, this is not safe, you know, including all the stuff that we read, right? We have all these drowning campaigns at us all the time and all this stuff, right? And so we have an innate fear of the water, if not for ourselves, definitely for our children, absolutely for our children. And yeah, and I think it's great when kids are learning to be comfortable in the water. I think it's wonderful, but it does concern me that children are still being taught to float on their back before they're being taught anything else. They're taught to be comfortable and to submit to the water when they're not capable. And that to me is really, really scary and dangerous.
That's crazy. Like, I remember when we were chatting or later on, like setting this episode up and stuff, I've been constantly thinking about that as a parent. Like, how can I teach my kid how to swim? Like, I was taught very different. I really learned a lot of stuff on my own, and sometimes it's still not the right form way, I guess, to put it. I when I watch these YouTube videos how to teach a kid how to swim, I mean, they're just throwing the kid in the water, and I'm like, what in the world? Like, I was like, hold up, man. I was like, so y'all teaching them like how my dad taught me in the military type scenario? I was like, I can't do this to my child.
No, and I really don't recommend it. I mean, what you see on my social media page, that's after training. Like those kids are trained. You know, we don't throw them in the first day. I think that that's a common misconception when we see these videos. You know, we see videos about infant swimming, and then in my case, I do toddlers and preschoolers. But when you throw a kid in the water like that and they are able to do something in there, that's because they have training. That's not innate necessarily, right? There are portions of swimming that are absolutely innate, but that's not one of them. And I would even go so far as to say that a child who is too young to communicate or understand communication about what is happening to them while they're in the water as they're learning, you can cause trauma.
Yes.
You can cause trauma in a child if you cannot communicate with that child and inform them what's about to happen and that they're safe and that you've got them and all of that. And I don't know that that level of trust can be built with an instructor outside of you, right? Like you are with your child all the time. They trust you.
Yeah.
And you can have that with your child, and you can do that with your child in a way that is, you know, safe both emotionally and physically, and easier because they trust you already. You put them with an instructor and then the instructor puts them under the water and there's no communication, that can cause trauma. And then you've got a child who's terrified of the water and maybe won't even let you wash their hair. Right. And like then we get into a whole other, you know, umbrella of problems, you know, because then we've got hygiene issues.
Yeah.
In the long run, right? Because you leave that be and then you have a teenager who does not wash his hair.
Not right now. But yeah, I agree with you on that. Like with my 10-year-old, my kid being special needs and stuff like that, my son has very bad trust issues with a lot of things. And I don't think it's necessarily just his scenario on the trust issues. It is the fact that his sensitivity is skyrocketed because with his autism and stuff like that, my son, he's never been that kid to want people to touch him. Like my son was the most oddball baby. Like my son did not like us holding him, picking him up. That's when he would cry. Like my son was very easygoing. Like he just did not want to be held. He did not want to be held. He didn't want to be picked up. Like this is when he was a baby too. And people were probably like, he was a baby not wanting picked up. Yes, my son did not like being touched. And when we started teaching him, when we had the instructors come in to like help him with his legs because my son wasn't able to walk, my son really didn't start walking until he was like fully walking, which is crazy to say, until he was like 7. So he's basically been 3 years fully able to walk and run now. And it's crazy to see the transitions of what it is that I had with staying with my son that now I have with my 3-year-old. My 3-year-old is all over the place. My 3-year-old, she's very open to talk to people, very happy, all this stuff. And I think I have to work daughter not committing herself and letting everything go to go in the water. My daughter I really would think is a fish. She just doesn't know how to swim. And she would have anything if she came with water. Like, and our bed been flooded twice because my daughter likes to play in the sink instead of brushing her teeth and sitting here just playing with water toys all over the place.
Everywhere.
It's And it's like
Yeah.
my daughter is so adamant she wants to go to the pool and stuff. Like, with all the hurricane and everything, she hated it because she couldn't go to the pool, and that was the biggest problem with the hurricane. She didn't care if anything else was hurt. She was mad that they wouldn't let her go. Yeah,
Priorities, man.
my daughter loves that pool, and it's like literally she's starting to slowly. It's crazy how progressed that she is compared to what I had to do with my kid up.
Yeah.
Like, and with Annabelle, she's only 3. I think she's so developed way more than what I'm used to with kids. So it's like when I see her like socializing with people and stuff, it was really hard at first because my daughter wasn't not, and it's like because we basically have her here. She's with me during the week. My wife's off during the weekends. I work weekends, and basically that's the daycare type scenario,
Yep.
you know. But it's like now we're starting to get her to go to daycare pretty soon, and we're seeing the transition of Belle getting more talkative, and she's able to be more talkative now because she's seeing it's a thing. So when we see the swimming ordeal, and the kids are not wearing the vest that she's out there wearing no vest, she will look at me and go, off. And I'm like, no, you ain't going if that's off. And she doesn't understand it. And it's been hard for me because I'm like, you know, I was just taught you'll swim. And I mean, not saying it in a mean way. Like my dad he pushed me a lot, but my dad made it to where I could achieve this stuff. I'm not condoning it on anybody, especially the way the world is now. No, don't just throw your kid in the water. But there is some ways that people have to learn. And so how does somebody do that? I know you have the programs and stuff like that. I don't want you to be like giving something for free on this, but this is something I would love to really make an acknowledgement on because I need to know. Like we've been seriously thinking like how easily get that even in start and how to do it the right way and, you know, not shun on you type scenario, you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing to me is that as parents, we need to get over our fear about teaching this. Like that is massive, right? We are so scared. Every time our kids are on the water, we're freaking out. We like, anytime they go near, we like run over and we're like, don't go close to the water, right? And so in doing this, I mean, it sounds like Bella's like way past this. And some kids don't develop that kind of fear. They're just like, nope, I'm good. But a lot of kids will pick that up, right? And they will pick up our fears. And then we have another problem that you have to calm before you can get to the actual body skill that is swimming. And so that's a whole, you know, and that's all included in our programs, like the how to help your child over the fear and get over it and how to get over your fear and all of that stuff. But once you're finally in the water with them, some things that we have to remember are that children are not developed the way we are, right? So like all of these programs, these traditional programs that, by the way, these were developed in the 30s. So we're talking almost 100 years ago. Okay. Like we have learned
keeping the tradition alive.
Yeah. But like we have learned a lot since then, right? I mean, we know way more. And just in the last few years, we know way more about trauma. We know way more about brain function, about emotional health and this and that. And all of that plays a part when you're trying to learn something, because especially when you're trying to learn something that has a little bit of fear. I think of this as like anything else. Like you put on a pair of skis for the first time, you go down that hill, you're going to be like, oh shit, the whole way down. And like, that's normal. That's normal. We have to have that. And so when you get a child in the water, first of all, they have to be with someone that they trust. Have to. Otherwise, how is a stranger? I mean, you're going to listen to a stranger if I tell you, yeah, it's fine. Just go. Jump off that cliff. It's fine. I promise you. Just go. You gonna trust me? You don't know me. Maybe I've done this before and maybe people died. Like, you don't know me. So, you know, and for a child, like, you can't ask a child to just trust, you know? Especially when we don't. It's normal. We want to protect ourselves. We want to keep ourselves safe. That is like basic, like lizard brain stuff, right? But once we're past that, we have to remember that developmentally, there's a whole bunch of physical development too that hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to give you one. Okay. I'm going to give you one huge that I wish everybody knew this. Okay. When you take that floaty off, do not expect that your child can swim with their head up.
Right.
Most of back here, not developed enough. We may be able to do it. And they're going to try because that's what they see us do. But young children cannot swim with their head up. If their head is up, their bum goes down because they're not developed enough. And then this is the drowning position. That's what it's called. If you're in the water like this, you are in the drowning position. Now, as adults, we can tread water. We can, change positions, go back to swimming, whatever. We have that capability. Children do not. Young children cannot tread water. They cannot move forward in this position. They can't swim like this. And so they end up doing this bobbing thing, and then they worry, they panic, and then we have a situation, right? So one of the big mistakes that I see is parents trying to get their child to swim with their head up. They're like, just doggy paddle harder. I mean, it is an enormous amount of work for a child to keep their head up. They're not going to get very far.
I hated doggy paddle.
It's
That was
like,
I used to.
Tiring.
There was a daycare. It was a old daycare center that we used to go to, and out of all the people, I was one of the cool ones, but I played it off. I really couldn't swim, and everybody was passing. We were at this pool thing. You had to take this swim test. If you passed the swim test, you got to go to the deep end. So of course, me being a cool guy, I'm playing it off in the shallow end, like, okay, just hang out in the pool, whatever. And then all the friends were wanting to go, hey, we're going to take this test. We're going to go in the deep end. So everybody took the test, passed it with flying colors. And like, hey, Warren, come on in. And I'm like, I tried to pull it off so much. And then when I started doing the thing, all I knew was doggy paddle for a while. Like, I started panicking, and the doggy paddle was the first thing you think of. It was definitely, it sucks, and it makes you swim way freaking harder in ways for a doggy paddle.
Yeah, it's super ineffective, right? It's ineffective in the water.
You're basically barely flying up in the water at most, and you're doing way more of a stride than you need to. Oh
yeah, you are working hard. Yeah, for sure.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah. So
that I love how when you said like everybody tries to teach them to have their head up first thing. So how is that you able to position that for them to learn, hey, it's okay, go further. Okay, keep trying.
Yeah. So the first thing is that they've got to swim with their face in the water. Okay. Yeah. First thing is they've got to be swimming with their face in the water, right? And so that has to be comfortable for them first, right? Have to be comfortable putting their face in the water. It helps tremendously if they're willing to open their eyes. Some parents and instructors will give goggles to make it easier. That being said, I don't recommend it, because if your child falls in the water without their goggles, that's like leaving for an overnight trip without their lovey, and you got a problem.
That was my problem too. I really could not. I didn't have a comfort zone if I didn't have goggles, I wasn't going in the water. Like, I had to see what was in the water for me to even think of even going in. And I'm pretty sure that's a common thing, especially with, hey, if I don't have goggles, I ain't swimming. Like, oh my gosh, you're bringing back kid memories for me over here. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I don't recommend introducing goggles until after they know how to swim. So
fully after.
They're fully swimming. They open their eyes. Their eyes are open, because we can see enough underwater. It's blurry, but we can see enough under the water that we can see at least where the wall is, or where a parent's hand is to grab for safety, or the rung of a ladder or something. So we want to teach children that is fundamentally important for their safety.
Right.
And when we introduce goggles, then you have to take them away after, and it's actually harder to take them away after than it is to just teach them and even though sometimes it's a struggle for a little bit to get them to open their eyes, I by the end of the program that I coach, they're all opening their eyes because they learn that it's a lot less scary when they can see where they're going, especially when we're throwing them in at the end and they don't even know which way they fell, right? And all of a sudden they will look around, even if they've never opened their eyes, they'll open their eyes and look and then realize, oh, this is a lot less scary because I can open my eyes, I can look around, I can make a decision, and off I go. And and taking those away afterwards it's really hard. It's really, really hard. The rehabilitation and like the fear about opening their eyes underwater, like it's a whole other realm of outside of comfort zone for them. Now that being said, I do recognize that if you're swimming in a community pool, the chlorine levels are super high and eventually it can sting. And so if you're in the water with your child for hours and hours on end, what I recommend is 15 minutes of practicing where their eyes are open and we're doing the stuff. And then you give them the goggles. That way that is always there. They always have that practice time in, they're maintaining it. That they'll be fine. If they fall in, they will open their eyes. There's not going to be any sort of fear, but you're able to protect their eyes from the sting, which means that we don't have a negative association happening for next time,
Okay. Yeah. So for the 15-minute thing, so like how does that transition? Like, how do you get kids to actually trust you? And I gotta know. So how was the transition from just teaching normal kids and adults and stuff to actually teaching your very own?
So what's interesting is that when I teach a child that is not mine, I have to build trust with this child. But because they don't know me and they don't trust me to start, it's really, really easy to set boundaries. Super easy, right? They learn really quickly that what Selena says is what's going to happen, right? And so I build trust through those boundaries. That's how I do it when I'm doing it with a child that's not mine. I use routine and habit and structure so that the environment, the lesson, the whole thing becomes something that they're used to and know. We always do things in the same order. We always, and I'll add something, but it'll still be within that order, within that structure, and it'll still happen the same way as all the other things happen. And so it creates a trusting and comfortable environment. And so that is how I build trust with a child that's not mine. But that takes time. That takes days.
Right.
Days. Yeah. And so one of the things we do is that everything when I'm teaching is an intensive, right? So I see the child every single day. Because a week is a real, do you remember having to wait till Friday for a birthday party or and you're just like, I have to wait all the way till Friday. Like, that's a long time.
That's like that wait to Christmas. Like, oh my gosh, it's so overwhelming.
Exactly. And so if a child is only seeing an instructor once a week, that's a long time for them, right? It's not a long time for us. For us, we're like already at swim class again. But for them, that's a long time. And so that we remove that from the program. But the nice thing is that when parents are doing it, the child already trusts them. And so what you have to do is build those boundaries. And those boundaries can be a little bit more difficult for a parent to build, but because the trust is there and because you set boundaries elsewhere in their lives all of the time, it actually happens pretty quickly.
Right.
So if we think about these lessons, this time that you spend in the water with your child, teaching them and helping them learn and get out of their comfort zone and try and experiment and fail and learn, like as a life skill, as a non-negotiable, like wearing a seatbelt in a car, holding your hand in a busy parking lot, brushing their teeth before bed. If we can look at it like that, then we can build those boundaries because we do it all the time. Right? Your child may argue every once in a while about buckling up, but ultimately they know they're not getting away with it. And so long as you're consistent, it'll be fine. And it's the same thing when you get in the water with them. It's the same thing with everything. You want your child.
I was about to say that's a big thing for a lot of things. Like, I've told my wife, I've told stuff like with potty training, like with my daughter right now. We're on that stage right now. And I've told Samantha, I was like, you know, hey, if we keep this going, she's going to get better with it. And my wife has been off of work for a while, and she just now started going back. And we were doing very good with Belle for a while. We were doing consistency with going to the potty and stuff consistent. We fell off on it because I was working nights. So I'm thinking, okay, my wife has got this going at the same time. And I mean, she was telling me, she's like, no, she's been peeing in the pull-up again. I'm like, we're back down to square one again. Like, it's, and you got to keep that process going. You cannot stop it and then get mad when it messes up, because that consistency is gone. So I love when you said, like, you're with them all the time to build that trust. Like, I've always wondered why, when you do, like, when we used to do assigned swimming lessons and stuff, it's always once a week. And I was like, you know, and I remember I asked my mom and my dad, and I was like, how do they expect anyone to swim once a week? Like, it's only, you're training them once a week. And I'm like,
yeah.
How, like, I legit was trying to figure out, I was like, how's that teaching them how to swim? And it's like,
Yeah.
and I was like, and now all we know is, oh, that's a money grab right there. But more you paying for the lessons, more he's making the money to teach your child to swim. And it's like, smart. And then I'm like, well, the kid's never going to swim, so I guess people are just going to have an empty pocket trying to pay the kid once a week.
I mean, it's incredible to me that we don't have any sort of, like, I am to my knowledge one of the only swim schools in the world
Really?
that offers a guarantee.
Okay.
Because, well, for a lot of reasons. I mean, because when learning a body skill, you just need to drop into your body and be connected and be there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to practice.
Right.
If you don't get on your skis or your bike or your, I don't know, surfboard, whatever it is, for an amount of time, that first run's going to be a little hard, right?
Yep.
That's normal, right? But if you think about when you were training wrestling, you have to learn all of that. You have to learn what it feels like when you've got someone in that proper headlock. You got to feel like, what does it feel like when I'm locked in properly? What does it feel like when I got an arm bar properly? What does it feel like when he's got me, right? And you got to tap into that. And once a week doesn't
get used
allow
to those
that.
bump cards on that same thing too. Those
Yeah.
don't ease up either.
No, exactly. And so, like, potty training and, you know, learning to ride a bike or learning to find the edges on your skates or all of that stuff, it's all very much the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's all very much the same. You got to find that sweet spot, and once you've found it, well, then you got to practice. You got to be able to find it faster, and then eventually it just becomes innate and you've just got it. And then it becomes like riding a bike, where you don't actually forget how.
Shortcuts.
You lose a little bit of your chutzpah sometimes if it's been a while, but you don't forget how.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But this is what it is, right? If there's not that consistency in recognizing that with that feeling, whatever it is in our body, in your daughter's case, I have to pee. Right? Mm-hmm. She's so used to just releasing into a diaper that she doesn't actually think about it or recognize the feeling because she doesn't have to pay attention to it. So this is where that consistency comes in, where it's necessary, right? For her to be able to drop.
Ooh, like, a lot of swimming schools didn't have a guarantee for stuff like that. That's
they don't,
insane.
They don't.
I mean, swimming's a big thing. Like, that's
it is
a big life cycle. I mean, you need to learn how to swim. Like, you can't go on with life without not knowing how to swim. Like, even with y'all living in Canada, like, you're going to eventually be able to swim and stuff. Like, if you want to do stuff, you're gonna have to learn how to swim. Like, I would always thought that would have been like one of those big transitions, like, you know, like where kids have their life cycle. And you, like, you know, as a parent, I mean, us playing sports and stuff, your cycle is you want to teach your kid how to start playing sports. First sport you're probably going to teach them, I don't know, maybe different in the area in Canada and stuff. I think maybe y'all teach them to play hockey or something regarding skates or something like that. We're teaching them to play, you know, t-ball, baseball would be the first thing to start off anywhere in sports, and then maybe soccer, go up the ranks up that way. It's crazy to know that swimming doesn't get that much of a focus in, because you got to learn how to swim. You got to. So it's like, I would think that would have been a very serious school or something like that. So that's crazy to believe. Like,
Yeah,
you're
and I
the
mean,
only one really with a guarantee. That
yeah,
still shocks me right now.
it's crazy, right? But the thing is that we actually expect, we have gotten to a place, at least in North America anyway, where we expect our child to have to learn for a long time, right? Because if you went through lessons, I know you didn't, and I learned to swim pretty much on my own in the lake at the cottage, but I did go through those lessons. And by the time you get through all of those, I mean, first of all, the slow burn of that is like 5 to 6K per child. Like that I know, and we don't feel
Ooh.
it, but it's a whole, I mean, it's a whole racket, right? Teach them to be comfortable before you teach them to be capable. And then instead of letting them explore and figure out how to move, which is how we all need to learn to use our bodies, right? Like trial and error. You're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna fall, you're gonna trip, you know,
Yep.
whatever, and you figure it out. If you think about the way they learned to walk, you know, they fell and then they got back up and they tried again. Yeah. And they need that. But instead, these instructors in these programs are prescribing movement. Your hand has to be like this. You have to reach like this. Elbow has to be straight. Do you think that a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old can do that? I mean, they don't have the body
Oh my
awareness to know where their
gosh.
feet are half the times, right? Like I say, bend your knees, and they're like, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Like it takes them a minute to connect with their body and recognize. And so that has to be taken into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
These programs are not looking at any of that. But like I said, I mean, these programs have been around and they haven't
I
really been altered for 100 years.
so I remember when we had my son's first ever therapist for him to learn how to walk.
Mhm.
And they were telling us, like, and he was on speech therapy and stuff like that. They were telling me at 1, they're supposed to be able to speak at least 4 or 5 sentences. And I'm just like, how? And I was just like, and I would hear more every single time, especially with my daughter. We thought she was lacking in her speech and stuff. And with that too, they were like, oh, she should be able to speak, you know, her body parts, say her body parts, speak very fluent on sentences and stuff, because my daughter was at a mocking stage at that time. And my daughter literally elevated up after my son would be here. Like, we get my son 5 times out of a year. Like, he lives 8 hours away with his mom. And when he comes, that's when my daughter vocabulary, everything just skyrockets, especially in the summertime, because my son is here the full summer and she's around him all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy how people can predict, you know, that kids could speak 4 or 5 sentences at 1 or 2 years old. And I really was trying to understand that. I was like, so you're telling me just because my son cannot say 4 sentences, he is underdeveloped? Like, I never understood how people could compare that contrast with that scenario. So say like that with swimming, you know, you're having to learn how to move your whole body. Like, that's the biggest thing I've been trying to teach my daughter, is to move her legs when she's in the water. She will sit there and let that vest just drag her all across this pool. It is like, you have to move your legs. And she loves anything with like fish or anything like that. So I tell her, I say, you gotta fish, and she'll move her legs a little bit and she'll be shocked at how fast she can go in the water with it. And she's like, fish, good.
Yeah. So I would do something like put a toy or something that floats in the water and have her go get it. Have her go get it. Have her go play fetch with her. Play fetch with her in the water. Yeah. Have her go get it and bring it back to you.
Okay.
And she'll you know, she'll learn to move, to turn, to this and that. And
kids will do anything for a toy.
Well, and this is it, right? We learn more when we're exploring than when we're trying to be taught something, especially if we don't want to learn it. If you don't want to be there, you're not gonna learn anything, right? And so if we can make it goal-based, goal-oriented, right, then it can be fun, and they can, and they'll want to learn, you know.
Right.
But to me, the most important thing is every child. You said it. I mean, you were talking about the words and speaking, but like every child will develop at their own rate. and in their own way. And so trying to teach a child to do certain prescriptive movements in a certain way is not going to work for every child.
No.
Right. And if you've seen the videos on my socials, you'll see like these kids are not doing front crawl or breaststroke or anything like that, but they're swimming.
Right.
They're getting from point A to point B in the water, and the rest we'll worry about it later. If they want to be fast, if they want to be athletes, if they want to whatever. But if you think about the way we swim in the water, we're not, unless you're training, you're not doing laps. You're not trying to go fast. You're just chilling. So why are we teaching them all this stuff they don't need to know if they're not planning to be athletes? You can grapple with your kids without teaching them how to do an armbar.
Exactly.
Right?
I love that metaphor. Like people take that so as a strict perspective. Like I always use a reference like with baseball. You know, my dad would throw the ball hard as he can to think I could hit this thing. And I was like, because my biggest thing I hated when I was playing T-ball, I hated having to hit that damn ball off the tee. I hated it so bad. Like I had a problem, like if I struck out and I had to hit this damn ball off the tee, I'd just look at my mom and I'm just like, just tell him I'm not doing it. Like I would get so pushed. I would be pushed in sports enough to like, I would be upset if I had to hit it off the tee. And of course, if you hit it off the tee, you're probably going to hit it close to a home run or something like that because it's right there, easily set. You hit the ball pretty good. Hey,
yeah.
I didn't have that feel with it. Like I thought it was a failure moment. Like, man, I'm hitting off this stupid tee again. Like, come on, man. The dude that was like so much shorter than me, right on the first pitch. Like, and I'm hitting on this stupid tee. Like, I always pushed myself into that type of genre. Like, I always want to be better than the last person. Like, that's how I've always been built out to be in this thing. Like, I've kind of gotten a little bit better. You know, being a little bit wiser now and stuff, but my ego still is there. Like I still think I can do all this other stuff, you know, because I still keep myself at a high standard. Like I still work out, I still do stuff. Like I could still like, don't let no young person fool me. Like I have that ego to be like, hey, we can still run now. We can still run, but it might take me a little bit more to get back around. But we can still go. But yeah, Selena, is there any thing that you want to finish off on? Is there any plugs? Any shout outs? I greatly appreciate you doing this. This was awesome. Definitely very educating, and you are more than welcome. Come on anytime you want. And I'll make sure I'll have this a lot earlier next time. Apologize about that.
Happens. It's all good. I would love to come back and have a more of a chat because there's so much stuff that I feel like we touched on and we could elaborate on, and I think that would be really cool. Yeah, I would absolutely love that. I guess let's see any last things to share. I guess.
Okay, go.
If you're watching this and you feel afraid of teaching your own kids to swim, come hit me up, okay? Because you don't need to be afraid. You don't need to be afraid, okay? Like if a 16-year-old can learn to do this and we're going to call them a professional, let me tell you that you are the expert in your kid, right? I say it all the time, and I think, you know, probably people have heard this, but like, you know your kid best. And so you know how far you can push before they shut down, and you know what certain looks on their face mean way better than any instructor, even one like that's seasoned, you know, that's been doing this for a long time like me. And what I found when we started this virtual program and had parents start teaching their own kids is what happened is it turns out that the parents are better at my job than I am.
Oh,
they literally are better at it.
Oh,
literally,
no.
because they know their kids so well.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep. No one's gonna know your kid better than yourself.
Never. Not ever, not ever, not ever. I mean, we hope one day that they know themselves really well, right? But nobody's going to know them as well as you do, and that is something that, like, you are the expert, and I can teach you the rest. You know, all the water safety, all the stuff that you're worried about. Like, I can teach you that. That's the same as keeping a first aid kit in your car and wearing a helmet when you go biking, right? Like basic safety, you know, some preventative stuff. And the rest is all the same as everything else.
Hey, I love it.
Yeah.
I love how you use that reference because I remember I used to do personal training stuff, and I used to my family, they had this fitness pack that they wanted to do. They did a fitness challenge for $250, and whoever lost the most weight would win this challenge. And my cousin, she asked me, she wanted me to train her. So she came in, and I told her, I said, all I ask you to do is show up. If you show up, I will give you my effort to help you through this, because most of them, they would do something and just up your butt, and it's, I'm not doing this, I don't like this, whatever. She was very consistent with it and was very adamant. But the funny thing is, everybody asked me, she's like, so what did you teach her? I said, I told her, I said, the first week is really where I'm going to be hands-on with you. I'll tell you how to do stuff, what to really do. After that week, if you don't learn it, I will help you, guide you in those ways, but you're going to have to learn. And I only told her a couple of routines to do, the timing to take for breaks and stuff like that. And she was so consistent with it for a whole the rest of that summer. And she would tell her mom, she's like, I have never been in the best shape of my life. And then when I was training with Warren, and she's like, Warren doesn't really boss me around or anything. Like, he legit has me do these things, and I just got to keep repping them out, just doing them repetition wise every single week, transition it, change it up a little bit. And the results were showing so much. Everybody was just like constantly asking her, and I was like, what is Warren teaching you? Like, because everybody looks at me when they're like, oh, he's just lifting heavy and just try to be big. And I was like, no, like, I taught her the right way to do this stuff. And I've told people all the time, we'll lose weight. Lifting weights is the fastest way to do it.
Absolutely. Stop running.
It's not running. Stop the running. Like, the running makes you just, and then when you get mad, you lose your butt, and you're like, you know, I got a flat stomach and I don't have this. I'm like, lift weights.
And you're hungry.
Exactly.
You're hungry all the time. So
exactly.
You and I could totally chat about this again, because I have lost 130 pounds and kept it off for like over a decade. I used to weigh 280 pounds. And I'm like, I'm 5'8". Yeah.
Okay.
So
we're the same height.
Are we? You're short. You're short for a man.
Yes. And the funny thing is, for me to even
too.
play college basketball, people legit like were shocked about that. Like, I had a nice jump shot. That's really all I was known for. And then when they put me in college and they were like, all right, you ain't playing shooting guard no more, I already knew I wasn't transitioning that far after that. Yeah. But Selena, thank you. This was definitely a blessing. Definitely we'll have to come back on. We could talk about stuff like that for sure. For sure. But I hope you have a great rest of your day, and thank you again.
Yeah, you're so welcome. It was great chatting with you. I imagine we'll have links below. You'll be putting
all the links will be below.
Right.
Yep.
Perfect. All right. So it was really nice chatting with you. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'll look forward to talking again.
Absolutely. Thank you, Selena. Have a good one.